Good morning. Hey, it's Brian over at Fairway Independent Mortgage. We are here with a friend of ours, Nick Painz from RE/MAX Alliance here in Westminster. And we just wanted to sit down and do some industry Q&A here a little bit with Nick, and he's got some really fun ideas to share. So anything you want to add to that, or should we just kind of jump in?
Let's do it.
Okay, cool.
All right.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about some investment properties today, and wondering, kind of first of all, how does your process change helping people buy investment properties versus helping them buy their own primary residence?
Sure. Yeah. So I think obviously when you're looking for an investment property, it's got to work on paper, not emotionally, right? So when you're working with like a first-time home buyer, those are the people that go in and they love the home and they imagine bringing their family up in that house, and you can't look at it like that as an investor. So we're really looking at let's put it on paper, let's figure out your cap rates, let's figure out what type of cash flow we have here, and just things like down payment, and is this a good purchase from a spreadsheet numbers type of thing? Because if it works, you buy it. If it doesn't, you don't.
Okay,
Pretty
cool.
simple.
Do you have some sort of a formula or a program that helps determine some of that?
Yeah, so I have a couple spreadsheets that I use, and then obviously there's some real simple, qualifying factors like cap rate is pretty easy to figure out in general, but I like to go a little bit above and beyond that because I think the cash flow is important. I think things like your depreciation is important in figuring out, hey, this is kind of the real situation of what it's going to cost you. This is your opportunity cost. I like to teach people about the opportunity cost of what else they could be doing with their money if they didn't purchase this property. So, so I've got a lot of spreadsheets that I use with my clients to kind of go through that. So we take the property, pull it off the MLS, throw all the numbers in, runs everything out, and I go, this is what you're looking at.
Wow.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Wow. How about, in the last 10 years, how's the Denver real estate market changed in terms of the rental scene?
Yeah, so I mean, there was a period of time where, as the market was kind of hot, investors really came in and were just like snatching everything up. And that kind of increased the market the way we saw over the past like 5 or 6 years, where just things were going nuts. Multiple offers, cash offers for $300,000, $250,000 properties. And we've seen it. I mean, 10 years ago, you could buy a condo for $40,000, $50,000 for one bedroom, one bath condo. Now $150,000, $180,000, $200,000 for a 800 square foot condo. So I think the reality is, and I think you've probably seen it too on the lending side, when you're trying to qualify someone for purchasing a condo, for example, and you're finding that investors are owning 10, 12, 20, 30 units in a particular condominium unit. You can see how that affects even first-time home buyers and how it can make it a little bit more difficult. But I think the market is shifting a little bit right now, where we're not seeing quite as much investor activity because the prices are getting high enough to where they're driving out those investors. They're not wanting to compete with that emotional buyer anymore, and so I think we're seeing a little bit of a change, and things are seeming like they're cooling down a little bit right now. Okay.
Are you seeing? Does it feel like there are more investors that are selling at the moment by chance? Or they're just holding?
That's something I don't know. A lot of times it's hard to know unless you pull the actual individual listing to find out, like, hey, this is an actual investor or a non-owner occupied unit that's being sold. But I don't see quite as many flips as we once saw. So as far as the short-term holds, but I'm a big proponent of long-term holds anyway. So obviously we don't see quite as much of that, but in general, the rental industry, even nationwide, has pretty much always been the same. About 15% of Americans rent, and that has never really changed. That's always kind of been the same. That number doesn't really fluctuate. So
no matter how high rents are, huh?
Exactly. So that's why it's such a cool thing, is that like rentals are not going away. Renters are not going away. So there's always investment opportunity. You just have to find it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So being that there's so many folks that rent, obviously that's a benefit if you're an owner that can, have rental properties. What other sort of advantages do folks have if they're looking to become an investor?
I just think, as far as purchasing, or just in
general,
just having it. I think, obviously, I really don't believe there's any better way to build wealth. The previous video that I did here was talking about the return versus stock market return, and there's no comparison. So the ability to be able to purchase an investment property and hold it as a long-term rental, there's nowhere else you could put your money to build that type of wealth and have that type of asset based on leverage with a little bit of money down. That's what's fantastic about it.
I like it. Where is there an easy spot people can go to talk to look at the video that you're referring to?
Yeah, so on my YouTube page and on my Facebook page. So my Facebook page is Meta Homes. Facebook page is META Homes, and it's on there. It should be pretty easy to find. It's a 15-minute video, uses spreadsheets and shows people the exact return based on real numbers and real actual return of the stock market, real actual return of the of an investment property.
Yeah, so that's a great video. So if you haven't seen that, go look for it. It's really, really informative. What's the most important piece of advice when looking for a rental for an investment property?
I think once again, it just has to be, one thing that I learned from some of the people in the industry that have been doing this for a long time and have maybe even hundreds of rentals. They talk about finding the best location. Okay, so pick your location and then find the best property in that location. So too many people are looking to find a deal, when really it's not necessarily as much about finding a deal as it is finding the right property. And so if that deal or if that property doesn't have quite the cap rate as the one maybe down the street, if it fits your location and it's maybe a nicer property, and that's part of the reason that the cap rate is lower, that's something that you really want to look at, is try to find the nicest property that fits within your budget, that has the proper amount of return in your location. So find your location first. One of the big things I do, you want easy access to your main areas, so Denver, Boulder, easy access to there. That's where you want to find rental properties. Rental properties in Fort Morgan are not going to return like they do, just off the I-25 corridor or something like that.
Yeah,
so
makes perfect
so
sense.
location is really big when we're talking about that.
Okay, perfect. All right, last question here. In your opinion, how strong is the rental market in Denver and the surrounding areas?
Yeah, I think the rental market itself is huge. So as far as renting your property is concerned, as far as purchasing a property, it's a little bit more difficult because you are competing with those emotional buyers. But once you have that rental, the return is incredible right now. If you've owned a home for 3 years right now and you go to rent it, your cash flow is going to be crazy just for 3 years. So if you've owned a home for 10 years and you go to rent it, your cash flow is going to be like double your mortgage payment. So the rental market, just in general, in the last about 7 years, rent rates are up about 50% in 7 years. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. There's nowhere else. There's a couple cities in the area or in the United States, San Francisco, Seattle, that have rates like that. But the rental market has risen with the housing market.
Right.
And the great thing is that when we see a downturn in the housing market, the rental market doesn't really tend to follow. It tends to flatline.
Right.
So as the home values drop, rental actually just slows down or comes to kind of a halt, but it doesn't drop. Your renters will never be like, hey, I can go rent something else for $1,500. You're charging me $2,000.
Right.
The rental market doesn't really change like that.
Okay.
So that's what's really cool about it. So Denver's a great market to be in right now.
Cool.
And who wouldn't want to live in Denver, Colorado?
Beautiful, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a native.
Yeah.
Hard to leave.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Nick Painz,
Absolutely.
Meta Homes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
RE/MAX Alliance. Appreciate you being part of our series here. So
Great.
great to have you.
Thank you very much.
Cool.